I just saw Snow White and I need the summer movie season to get here faster because I'm tired of all this slop I'm being fed. Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today I'll be reviewing the newest Snow White movie and I am not looking forward to this review at all because I think Disney has to be stopped. I am tired of being fed slop from them. I think all general audiences are tired because this movie isn't going to open nearly as well as like the Little Mermaid live action movie is. And I can't even remember like the last great Disney animated film that I've seen, the last great Disney live action movie that I've seen. I mean, we can bring it all the way back to maybe Inside Out 2, but that's Pixar. You can say Deadpool and Wolverine. That's from Marvel. I know it's owned by Disney, but it's still not their movie that they're making. That's not their brand. And I think that this Snow White movie is my least favorite live action remake that they have ever done yet. And if you didn't know it, this movie has had a lot of drama and controversy surrounding it. And I just think that didn't help it either. There's so much just horrible things being said about this movie. And I kind of went in with lower expectations. I was like, I'll just forget about the drama. And then I got out of the movie and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. I mean, what's hilarious about it is that they decided to make a live action remake of the movie that started it all for them, as the OG Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was their first ever animated film all the way back in 1937. I wasn't even born back then. My dad wasn't even born back then. I mean, you know how crazy that is? The people who saw that movie in theaters are probably dead by now. I mean, I'm serious about it. They're probably dead. They probably don't even know what Snow White even is at this point. But somehow, with all this technology that we have consumed, with all these great actors that we have been given, they made a worse version of a movie that took, I don't know, like 90% of the budget all the way back in 1937. That to me is insane. Let me just say this straight up. If you're a fan of the original Snow White like me, you'll most likely find this to be a slop fest like I did. And what's funny is that it's not even Snow White anymore. I'm not really talking about the name of the title. I'm just saying it's changed so much. I mean, you can say the name of the title as the original was called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They just took the Seven Dwarfs out of this title for what reason? I don't know, but we'll get to it. But this changes to the story just mess with the movie so much and mess with my enjoyment. But I will start with the positives first because I want to be a little bit positive about this movie. And something nice that I'll say about it is that it's directed by Marc Webb, and I still think he directs it in a competent way, even if he is given, horrible script to work with and actors that want nothing to do with each other. I've always really liked Marc Webb's work, the Amazing Spider-Man films. I wish he got to finish his trilogy, man. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a film that I love. It's a guilty pleasure movie. I think it gets better in every single rewatch. I think that third film would have been great. I just think that he is actually a really good director. He's just given like pretty horrendous scripts, but I'd love for him to make a return back to making another superhero movie. Most of the cinematography here seemed oddly framed. Also, most of the lighting here was really bad. It kind of reminded me a little about Wicked. Like some of the shots, like the backlighting was like too much. I was like, you need to calm down. Whoever's your gaffer in this movie needs to take a step back. And it didn't live up to the other Disney live action films, as I said. But the set design in this movie is still impressive. That's one thing that did live up to some of the other Disney live action movies. That's one thing that I like to look at when I'm watching a Disney live action movie, is that because the animated films are so beautiful, so luscious, because they can play with so many different colors. They really have a lot of unlimited possibilities that they can go with. And right here, they did make the film look pretty decent set design wise. What really stuck out to me were the scenes in the forest, like the scene where she's running through the forest after she almost gets killed by the guard, and she runs into the dark forest and all that. She's like scared, branches are grabbing at her. That was a really cool scene. She fell in the water. That is a really well shot, well directed scene. I love the look of that. And then when she arrived at the dwarf's cottage, the outside of that, the inside of that was really awesome. I would assume that that's a real building that they made. I'm hoping it is. It didn't really stick out like a sore thumb like some of the other stuff in this movie, so I'm assuming that's not a green screen. But yeah, the stuff inside the cabin was really well made. I really liked all that. Just like it looked like some little dwarves made it, and that's really what I want to see from here. Like some classic visual elements that are taken from the original film and just thrust into live action, and that was exactly what I got from the set design. I also thought Rachel Zegler was pretty good, but it's far from her best role, which was West Side Story. But at least we had one competent actor in this movie. And even though I don't agree with her stance on the original and what she said while promoting this new movie, I will admit that she's a fantastic singer, but I feel as if she needs to branch out just a little bit more as an actress. She's been doing a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same singing roles. I mean, The Hunger Games is kind of an action movie, but she played a character that based her role is like a singing role. Her character sung a lot, and she was in West Side Story. Now this, it's just a lot of singing. She was in Y2K, but I'd like her to maybe do a horror movie. I think that would be pretty cool. A comedy. You could say Y2K is like a horror comedy, but it's really not. It's more, it lines up as sci-fi comedy. But her in a horror movie would be pretty good. I'd love to see her be a scream queen. One thing I did laugh at though in this is that she's truly a slave here. I mean, they went full in on her being like rags to riches in this role, because they had her mopping cobblestone outside of the castle. I was like, that's crazy work. Like, they showed a shot of her starting to sing, and then she's outside the castle just mopping the cobblestone. I'm like, what are we mopping cobblestone here for? It's just dirty. I mean, that'll just get your mop dirty, man. I don't know what's going on, but they really did make her a slave. Now onto the list of my negatives here, which there are a handful of them, and probably my biggest complaint is the changes to the story. And as I said, there's a lot of those too. And first of the big changes was that there isn't even a prince anymore. Rachel Zegler came out and said, she's not going to be saved by the prince anymore and all that. And the funny thing is, she was still saved by a guy, but it just wasn't a prince. Snow White just falls in love with, let's just say, the leader of the bandits, because there's you have the Seven Dwarfs, and then you have I don't know how many there were, like 8 bandits in the movie. It's too much. They really added way too much to the story, and I thought this was an odd thing to add to the movie, because they're another secondary characters, just like the Seven Dwarfs. The Seven Dwarfs are supposed to be the main secondary characters, as the original was called, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But right here, you have the bandits, you have the Seven Dwarfs, you have the Evil Queen, you have Snow White. It's too much to handle. But the dwarves here are also another big issue, because they're just made in the form of CGI. They're CGI dwarves. To me, that's pretty distasteful, man. And guess who I have to thank for this? Peter Dinklage and his big fat mouth, as he complained about this and said, it's not for our times. But I think I massively disagree with that, because these roles could have gone to actors who are little people, and because they don't hardly get many roles in Hollywood as is. Peter Dinklage gets a lot of roles because he's famous, but other little people don't get a lot of roles in Hollywood. And I think these roles could have gone to them, and they could have just been way more well suited, because then I wouldn't have to look at Uncanny Valley crap that looked like it came out of a Polar Express movie. It looked god awful. And then we got Gal Gadot in here, who thought she was acting in a totally different movie, because she was going for an extremely campy version of the Evil Queen here. I don't even know what she was doing on set, but she wasn't doing much. I mean, she makes me think like I could win an Oscar for my acting range, because she doesn't have any acting range at all. Like, she tries to give emotion, but she's like, no, or she's like, you better not. And I'm like, what? You gotta give some more emotion than that. How can you be this famous and give no emotion at all? Like, how much is she getting paid for this? I bet, like, I don't know, like $30 million, and she's not doing anything. And her song was just, oh my goodness, man. It was like screeching to my eardrums, man. Can she just stop acting for once? Some of my other small negatives were the new songs. It's just the same issue as Moana 2. Those songs didn't, attach to anyone. Sure, that movie made $1 billion. The people that wrote those songs said, oh, well, just give it a couple months. But still, no one's talking about the Moana 2 songs. And the new songs of this movie weren't needed at all, man. Just keep the original songs, and they did have some of them, but why these new songs, as they're just not as good as the original songs? And also, one other funny thing that I didn't like was the hair that Rachel Zegler had. That I don't know what was going on there in the hairstyling department. But I get it. Snow White has shorter hair, but if you're gonna change up like 70% of the story, why not change her hair also while you're at it? I mean, look at Rachel Zegler in West Side Story. She kind of reminded me of Snow White, like her look in that movie when she's at the dance with the white dress and all that. She really looked great in that movie. I think the longer hair would have worked so much better for her here. Overall, the live action remake of Snow White is another slop fest with so many issues, not only in the movie, but also behind the scenes. Marc Webb and Rachel Zegler did their best to save it, but the changes to the story didn't help, and most of all, the CGI dwarves and Gal Gadot were just horrendous in my opinion, and made for an instantly forgettable and not worth revisiting movie. I'm gonna give Snow White a 4.5 out of 10. If you did go see Snow White, feel free to leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear some different opinions. If you did like it, it's fine. If you did not, it's fine also. But leave your thoughts down below. If you did enjoy this review, make sure to like this video as it does help out a lot. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.